requires. So, guys, it's all going to be okay. And the Home Secretary, Jack Straw, in 1998, at the moment this was passing through the House of Commons, said British judges will be enabled to make a distinctively British contribution to the development of jurisprudence of human rights across Europe. Namely, folks, it's all going to be great. We're in charge.
Farage's radical immigration overhaul. The end of Britain as we know it? Right then, if you're not subscribed to UK Connors yet, you're about to witness exactly why you need to hit that subscribe button immediately. What I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you view Britain's future. And trust me, you'll want to be here for every bombshell we uncover. Picture this: hundreds of thousands of legal migrants, people who've built their lives here, who've contributed to our economy, who've called Britain home for years, suddenly finding themselves with deportation notices. It sounds like something from a dystopian novel, doesn't it? Well, I'm afraid it's about to become very real indeed, because Nigel Farage has just unveiled the most radical immigration overhaul this country has seen since the Empire, and frankly, it's absolutely staggering in its scope and audacity. The man who gave us Brexit, who turned the political establishment upside down, is now preparing to do something that will make his previous campaigns look like gentle summer afternoon tea parties. We're talking about a complete dismantling of Britain's immigration system as we know it, and the implications are so far-reaching that even I'm still processing the sheer magnitude of what's being proposed. Here's where it gets properly controversial, and why every single person watching this needs to understand what's coming. Farage isn't just talking about stopping new immigration or tightening border controls. Oh no, that would be far too conventional for the master of political disruption. He's targeting people who are already here legally, people who followed every rule, jumped through every hoop, and built their entire existence around the assumption that Britain wanted them here permanently. The Telegraph has revealed that Reform UK, under Farage's leadership, is preparing to force every single immigrant with permanent residency to reapply for visas under completely new, far stricter regulations. We're not talking about minor tweaks to the system here. This is a wholesale revolution that would require higher wages, dramatically improved English proficiency, and adherence to standards that many current residents simply cannot meet. But here's where it becomes absolutely jaw-dropping in its financial implications. Reform claims these changes would save Britain a staggering £234 billion over the course of each migrant's lifetime. Yes, you heard that correctly. We're talking about numbers so large they are difficult to comprehend. That's not just pocket change. That's a kind of money that could transform our entire public services, our infrastructure, our very way of life. Zia Yusuf, Reform's policy architect and the mastermind behind these proposals, has stated with chilling clarity that these modifications would result in hundreds of thousands of people ultimately losing their established position in the United Kingdom. He's not sugarcoating this. He's not dancing around the implications. He's telling us straight that this is designed to remove people, and is confident that many will leave voluntarily once they lose access to benefits. Now, here's where Farage demonstrates his absolute mastery of political timing and messaging. He's not just attacking current immigration policy, he's going directly after Boris Johnson's legacy, targeting what is dubbed the Boris Wave. This refers to the 3.8 million individuals who immigrated to the UK following Brexit under the supposedly more relaxed regulations introduced by Johnson's government. It's a brilliant political strategy, really, because it allows him to blame both the previous Conservative government and the current Labour administration simultaneously. The sheer scale of what we're discussing here cannot be overstated. In January alone, officials granted settlement to over 163,000 individuals, an 18% increase from the previous year. The total number of people with indefinite leave to remain status could well exceed 1 million people. 1 million. Think about that for a moment. We're potentially talking about displacing a population larger than Birmingham, larger than Glasgow, larger than Liverpool. Here's where Farage's proposal becomes truly revolutionary, and frankly, quite brutal in its efficiency. Under the current system, foreign nationals can apply for indefinite leave to remain after just 5 years, then convert that to full citizenship after another year. It's a relatively straightforward path that has allowed millions to build permanent lives here. Farage wants to obliterate this system entirely, replacing it with a regime that would require a migrant to reapply for visas every 5 years, earn wages significantly above the current £35,800 threshold, and wait 7 years before even being eligible to apply for British citizenship. The English language requirements alone would be transformative. We're not talking about basic conversational ability here, but professional-level proficiency that many native speakers might struggle to demonstrate formally. Combined with requirements for spotless criminal records and what they are calling good character assessments, this creates a system so stringent that current residents would find themselves in an entirely precarious position overnight. But perhaps the most controversial aspect of all this is a complete exclusion from welfare benefits and free NHS services. Think about the implications here. People who've been contributing to our tax system, who've been paying national insurance, who've been part of our communities for years, would suddenly find themselves cut off from the very services they've been funding. It's a level of exclusion that would fundamentally alter the social contract we have with legal residents. Reform claims this would save well in excess of £230 billion over the average claimant's lifetime. Yusuf has painted an absolutely apocalyptic picture of what happens if nothing changes, predicting that 800,000 people will become eligible to claim benefits next year, with half of the so-called Boris Wave migrants and their dependents likely to be unemployed. He is calling it a potential financial disaster for the United Kingdom. The language Yusuf uses is particularly striking and reveals a populist messaging strategy at the heart of this campaign. He declares that the era of cheap foreign labor is over and described Britain as having been transformed into a food bank for the world by successive Tory and Labour governments. It's inflammatory rhetoric designed to tap into deep-seated frustrations about economic pressure and national identity. What makes this even more intriguing is how closely it mirrors Donald Trump's approach to immigration restrictions in the United States. Trump has proposed imposing fees of $100,000, that's about £74,000, just for visa applications for skilled workers. The parallel isn't accidental. This is Reform UK positioning itself as part of a global populist movement that's fundamentally reshaping Western democracy's approach to immigration and national sovereignty. The timing of this announcement is absolutely crucial to understand. Reform is currently polling ahead of both Labour and the Conservatives by over 12 points, positioning themselves as a primary opposition to whatever government emerges from the next election. They are not just presenting these proposals as theoretical policy positions. They are presenting them as inevitable future government policy that could be implemented as early as 2027. Here's where the political calculations become particularly fascinating. By targeting the Johnson legacy on immigration, Farage is essentially arguing that even the post-Brexit Conservative approach was too liberal, too accommodating, too willing to compromise British interests for the sake of economic expediency. It's a narrative that positions Reform as the only party willing to take the truly hard decisions necessary to protect British workers and British resources. The response from established political parties has been predictably defensive. The Labour Party claims it intends to toughen up the system by extending residency requirements, but they are clearly scrambling to respond to proposals that are far more radical than anything mainstream politics has contemplated. Meanwhile, the Conservatives find themselves in the impossible position of defending policies implemented by their own previous government while trying to maintain credibility on immigration control. The business implications of these proposals are staggering and reveal the true revolutionary nature of what's being suggested. Industries that have relied on foreign workers for lower labor costs would face an immediate crisis. Reform acknowledges this by proposing an acute skills shortage visa system, but the requirements are so onerous that most businesses would find it practically impossible to use. Any company supporting a migrant under this program would need to prove an actual skills shortage exists and pay for training British workers in the same skill sets. It's worth noting that wealthy foreign investors would still be welcome under Reform's proposed golden visa system, which requires substantial investment in the British economy. This reveals the class-conscious nature of the proposals. The message is clear. If you're wealthy enough to invest significantly, you're welcome. If you're working class or middle class, regardless of your contribution to British society, you're potentially expendable. The human cost of these proposals is something that deserves serious consideration. We're talking about families who built their entire lives here, children who know no other country, elderly people who spent decades contributing to British society. The psychological impact alone of forcing people to reapply for the right to remain in what they consider their home would be profound and lasting. From a practical standpoint, implementing such a system would require a massive expansion of the Home Office bureaucracy, processing hundreds of thousands of new visa applications, conducting character assessments, verifying English language proficiency, and managing what would essentially be mass deportation logistics would cost billions and take years to implement effectively. The international implications are equally significant. Other countries would likely retaliate with similar measures affecting British citizens living abroad. Spain, France, Germany, and other European nations host millions of British retirees and workers who could find themselves subject to similar requirements. The diplomatic fallout could be substantial and lasting. What's particularly clever about Farage's approach is how he's framed this as both an economic necessity and a matter of national sovereignty. By claiming massive cost savings and positioning the policy of protecting British workers from unfair competition, he's created a narrative that appeals to both fiscal conservatives and working-class voters concerned about wage depression. The reality is that immigration has become the defining political issue of our time, not just in Britain but across the Western world. Farage has consistently demonstrated an ability to identify and articulate concerns that mainstream politicians either ignore or address inadequately. Whether you agree with his solutions or not, his track record of political success suggests these proposals will resonate with significant portions of the electorate. The establishment response has been predictably dismissive, with government spokespeople pointing out that illegal immigrants already receive no benefits and that foreign nationals typically wait 5 years to claim universal credit. But this misses the revolutionary nature of what's being proposed. Farage isn't just talking about illegal immigration or new arrivals. He's talking about fundamentally restructuring the rights and status of people who are already here legally. The constitutional implications are profound. Britain has traditionally operated under the assumption that legal residents acquire certain inalienable rights over time. These proposals would eliminate that assumption entirely, creating a permanent class of temporary residents with no guarantee of long-term security regardless of their contributions or connections to British society. Looking ahead, the political dynamics are absolutely fascinating. If reform continues to rise in the polls and these proposals prove popular with voters, both Labour and Conservatives will face enormous pressure to adopt similar policies or risk electoral irrelevance. We could be witnessing the beginning of a complete transformation of British political consensus on immigration and citizenship. The international community is watching these developments with a mixture of fascination and horror. For decades, Britain has positioned itself as a global, cosmopolitan nation that welcomes talent and investment from around the world. These proposals would fundamentally alter that national brand and could have lasting implications for Britain's ability to attract the skilled workers and international students that have become crucial to our economy. What's absolutely certain is that we're entering uncharted territory in British politics. The post-war consensus on immigration, citizenship, and national identity is crumbling before our eyes, and Nigel Farage is positioning himself as the architect of whatever emerges from the wreckage. Whether you view him as a visionary leader or a dangerous demagogue, his influence on British politics continues to be transformative and absolutely impossible to ignore. The coming months will reveal whether the British public is ready for such radical change. What we do know is that politics as usual is dead, and the old rules no longer apply. Farage has spent his career proving that the impossible can become inevitable with the right combination of timing, messaging, and political courage. This story is far from over, and frankly, we've only scratched the surface of the implications and consequences of what's being proposed. The very future of Britain as we know it hangs in the balance, and that's not hyperbole, that's simply the truth. Make sure you're subscribed to UK Connors because we'll be following every development, every reaction, and every consequence of what may well be the most important political story of our generation.